Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi or Sanhedrin 60 for Shabbat, February 15th, 2025. But please do not watch this on Shabbat. Please do it before or after. I wanted to make a note to the previous Daf. I ended the video before I had a chance to do this. But we started out and we had the statement about the Noahide laws and a prohibition for a Nochri to engage in Torah study. So you have to phrase this also in the context of how things worked back then. So what we do today for conversions is not according to what was laid out for us here. So Hillel, he converted somebody on 1 foot, right? So conversions back then, and even just before our modern time, maybe a century or so, before the state of Israel. So the formation of the state of Israel made conversions take longer because they don't want people to become citizens of the land of Israel so easily. But before the state of Israel, conversions, and this is the way that they're halakhically supposed to be done, they are immediately, so if you're male, circumcised, and then as soon as that heals, whatever time that takes, then you go to the mikvah. They would teach you a little bit of mitzvot in the water, some lesser and some easy mitzvot and some hard mitzvot, and they would convert you on the spot. Just like Israel, so the Rambam says that conversions happen, according to the Torah, of the way that Israel entered the covenant. So therefore, there was not say v'nishma, so we will do and we will hear, right? So you take it upon yourself before you hear what the commandments are. So in the case of a Gentile who studies Torah before he converts, that's not the way it was intended. And that's exactly what this Nochri thing is also indicating here, aside from the idea of the Nochri learning for syncretism. So unfortunately, we have a lot of things backwards today, and it really needs to be sorted out. But it all centers around the modern state of Israel with, just the idea that any returning person with Jewish descent or someone who converts to Judaism can become a citizen of Israel. So they didn't want it to be that easy. So they try to drag their feet with things and make people take like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 18 years. My wife showed me some video, some girl, I think it was like 18 years for her. But anyway, that is a perspective on the Nochri who's prohibited from studying Torah. It's something you're supposed to take on before you know the entirety of it. So we do things backwards today, and that's why most people don't understand that perspective of it. So getting into 60, now we're back at 60. So you shall, I'll jump back to the end of 59 where it says in a Braita that lists the Noachide mitzvot. It is stated that Rabbi Shimon says that the descendants of Noah were also commanded concerning the prohibition against engaging in sorcery. The Gemara asks, what is the reason behind the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? The Gemara answers, as it is written, now we're in 60, you shall not allow a witch to live. Exodus 22, verse 17. And it is written in the following verse, whoever lies with an animal shall be put to death. Exodus 22, 18. It is derived from here that anyone who is included in the prohibition of whoever lies with an animal includes Gentiles, is included in the command, you shall not allow a witch to live. The Braita teaches that Rabbi Eliezer says that the descendants of Noah were also commanded about the prohibition of diverse kinds. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? Shmuel says they are derived from that which the verse states, my statutes you shall keep. You shall not breed your animal with a diverse kind. You shall not sow your field with 2 kinds of seed. Leviticus 19:19. God is saying, keep the statutes that I have already instituted for you. That is mitzvot that were already given to the descendants of Noah, namely, you shall not breed your animal with a diverse kind. You shall not sow your field with 2 kinds of seed. The Gemara derives the details of this prohibition from the verse. Just as the Noahide prohibition concerning your animal applies with regard to breeding animals of different species, and not with regard to plowing with animals of 2 different species working together, which is prohibited only for Jews, so too Noahide prohibition in your field applies with regard to grafting one species onto another, which is equivalent to breeding. But it is not prohibited for Gentiles to sow different seeds together. Furthermore, just as the Noahide prohibition against breeding your animal applies both in Eretz Yisrael and outside Eretz Yisrael, so too the Noahide prohibition against grafting diverse kinds in your field applies both in the land and outside the land of Israel. The Gemara asks, if that is so, the term my statutes is understood as referring to mitzvot that were already given to the descendants of Noah. Then the verse, you shall therefore keep my statutes and my ordinances, Leviticus 18 verse 5, referring to the entire Torah, should also obligate the descendants of Noah, as it would be referring to statutes that I have already instituted for you. So the Gemara answers, there the verse states, quote, you shall therefore keep my statutes, indicating only those statutes that I am giving you now, whereas here in the verse concerning diverse kinds, the wording is my statutes you shall keep, meaning the statutes that obligate you from the outset you shall keep in the future. After clarifying the halachot of the descendants of Noah, the Gemara returns to the halachot stated in the Mishnah with regard to one who blasphemes. It is stated in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha said that during a blasphemer's trial, the judges asked the witnesses to use an appellation for the name of God, so that they do not utter a curse of God's name. Specifically, they would use the sentence, let Yoshi smite Yoshi, as the name Yoshi has 4 letters in Hebrew, like the Tetragrammaton. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, the blasphemer is not liable unless he blesses, meaning curses, the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God, which is to the exclusion of one who curses the 2-letter name of God, spelled Yod and He, who is not liable. The Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? We learned in the Mishnah that the expression used in court is let Yoshi smite Yoshi, which indicates a 4-letter name. The Gemara answers, lest you say that the Tana mentions this statement as a mere example, but does not intend that the witnesses use the 4-letter name in particular. Rav Acha bar Yaakov teaches us that one is liable only for cursing the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God. So there are those who say that Rav Acha bar Yaakov says as follows, conclude from the Mishnah that the Tetragrammaton is also a name for which one is liable, and he is liable not only for cursing the 42-letter name of God. The Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? We learned in the Mishnah that the expression used in court is let Yoshi smite Yoshi. The Gemara answers, lest you say that one is not liable unless there is a grand name that he curses. That is the 42-letter name. And the Tana mentions this statement as a mere example. Rav Acha bar Yaakov teaches us that one is liable even for cursing the Tetragrammaton, and the name Yoshi is mentioned specifically. The Mishnah teaches when the judgment is over, the judges need to hear the exact wording of the curse so they can sentence the defendant. The eldest of the witnesses repeats the curse, and the judges rise and make a tear in their clothing. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that the judges must stand? Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami says, it is derived from that which the verse states about Eglon. And Ehud came to him, and he was sitting by himself alone in his cool upper chamber. And Ehud said, I have a message from God, or Elohim, to you. And he arose from his seat, Judges 3:20. And are these names not inferred a fortiori? And if Eglon, the king of Moab, who was a Gentile and knew the name of God only by an appellation, stood in honor, all the more so must a Jew stand if he hears the ineffable name. The Mishnah teaches that upon hearing the curse, the judges each make a tear in their garments. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? The Gemara answers that it is derived from that which is written. Then came Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Yoah, son of Asaph, the recorder, and Hezekiah, with torn garments, and they told him Rab Shakeh's statement. 2 Kings 18, verse 37. Apparently, since they heard the blasphemous statement of Rab Shakeh, they were obligated to make a tear in their garments. It is furthermore stated that the judges do not ever fully stitch the tear together again. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? Rabbi Abahu says it is derived by means of a verbal analogy between the tearing stated in this regard and the tearing stated with regard to Elijah's ascendance to heaven. It is written here with regard to those who heard Rab Shakeh's blasphemy with torn garments, quote, with torn garments, and it is written there, and Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more, and he grabbed hold of his clothes and tore them into 2 pieces. 2 Kings 2:12. From his clothes and tore them from the meaning of that which is stated and tore them into 2, do I not know that they are pieces? And why must the verse state pieces? This teaches that they remain torn forever. They may never be fully stitched back together, but only partially sewn. The sages taught, but one who curses. I'm sorry again. The sages taught, but one who hears the curse himself, and one who hears it from the one who heard it, are obligated to make a tear in their garments. But the witnesses are not obligated to make a tear when they testify, as they already made a tear when they heard it from the blasphemer himself. So the Gemara asks, and if they made a tear when they heard the curse, what of it? Aren't they also hearing the curse now? The Gemara answers, it should not enter your mind that they were obligated to make a tear a second time, as it is written, and it came to pass, when King Hezekiah heard the statement of Rabshakeh, that he tore his clothes. 2 Kings 19:1. It can be inferred that King Hezekiah tore his clothes, but those who reported the blasphemy did not tear their clothes the second time. Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says, one who hears a mention of God's name in a blasphemous manner from a Gentile is not obligated to make a tear in his garments. And if you object and say that those who heard the blasphemy of Rabshakeh made a tear even though he was a Gentile, that is not correct, as Rabshakeh was an apostate Jew. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, one makes a tear only for hearing a curse of the ineffable name of God, to the exclusion of hearing a curse of an appellation for the name of God, for which one does not make a tear. The Gemara notes, and Shmuel disagrees with Rav Hiya with regard to two matters. As Rabbi Hiya says, one who hears a mention of God's name in a blasphemous context nowadays is not obligated to make a tear, as if you do not say so, the entire garment will be full of tears. The Gemara clarifies, from whom does one hear these mentions of God's name, about which Rabbi Hiya says that one's entire garment would be full of tears? If we say that he tears it from it a Jew, if we say that he hears from it a Jew, are Jews irreverent to such an extent that they demean the name of God? Rather, it is obvious that Rabbi Hiya is referring to hearing it from a Gentile. And if you say that the reference is to cursing the ineffable name, have the Gentiles learned it? They have no knowledge of his name. Rather, it is not referring to cursing by an appellation of God's name. And conclude from it that it is specifically nowadays that, according to Rav Hiya, one is not obligated to make a tear in his garment when hearing the curse of a Gentile, when hearing a curse of God that referred to God with an appellation. But initially, when the fundamental halakha was practiced, one was obligated to make a tear in these cases. Contrary to the opinion of Shmuel, the Gemara affirms, indeed, conclude from it that this is so. So the Mishnah teaches that after the eldest witness states the exact wording of the curse, the second witness does not repeat it, but he says, I too heard as he did. Reish Lakish says, conclude from it that saying I too as he did is valid testimony by Torah law, both in cases of monetary law and in cases of capital law. And the requirement that every witness must relate his testimony separately is a higher standard that the sages instituted. And here, since it is not possible to fulfill this requirement, as it is not appropriate for a blasphemous statement to be repeated several times, the sages established the matter according to the Torah law and did not require that every witness repeat the curse. As if it enters your mind that saying I too heard as he did is not valid testimony by Torah law, here in the case of blasphemy, would we execute the man without full testimony because it is not possible to allow the repetition of blasphemy? Clearly, such testimony is valid by Torah law. So the Mishnah teaches, and the third witness says, I too heard as he did. The Gemara comments, the unattributed Tana of the Mishnah holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who compares three witnesses to two. Rabbi Akiva maintains that just as in a case where there are two witnesses, the disqualification of one disqualifies all of the testimony, so too, even if there are three witnesses and one of the three is disqualified, all of the testimony is disqualified. Similarly here, too, he holds that if there are three witnesses, each of them must testify concerning the curse. Okay, and this is the end of that section. And I'm sorry. No, we got to keep going. It's 60. We're in a new Mishnah. I'm sorry. So one who worships, this is the Mishnah. It says, one who worships idols is executed by stoning. This includes one who worships an idol, and one who slaughters an animal as an idolatrous offering, and one who burns incense as an idolatrous offering, and one who pours a libation in idol worship, and one who bows to an idol, and one who declares that he accepts an idol upon himself as a god, and one who says to an idol, you are my god. Okay, but with regard to one who hugs an idol, or one who kisses it, or one who cleans it, or one who sprays water before it, or one who washes it, or one who rubs it with oil, or one who dresses it, or one who puts its shoes on it, he transgresses a prohibition but is not liable to receive capital punishment. With regard to one who vows in an idol's name, and one who affirms this statement by an oath in its name, he transgresses a prohibition. One who defecates before the idol known as Baal Peor is liable to receive capital punishment, even though defecating is a degrading act, as that is its form of worship. Likewise, one who throws a stone at Mercury, Merculus, is liable to receive capital punishment, as that is its form of worship. So you'll see if you go, I did the Rambam's Mishnah Torah AvaTorah section. So if you want to go back, he has all the laws codified for that. But that's in the Mishnah Torah playlist that I have. So the Gemara so now we're in the Gemara. It continues. What is added in the Mishnah by stating that phrase, one who worships? Since worship is the general description of all the actions related in the Mishnah, why is this phrase necessary? Rabbi Yirmiyah says that this is what the Mishnah is saying. One who worships an idol in its typical manner of worship is liable to be executed. And furthermore, one who slaughters an animal as an idolatrous offering, and one who burns incense, and one who pours a libation, and the one who bows to an idol are liable to be executed. And this applies even if this manner of worship is not the idol's typical manner of worship. So even if the idol in question is not typically worshipped in these ways, these specific acts are still considered idol worship because they are ways in which God is worshipped in the temple. The Gemara suggests, and let the Mishnah also count sprinkling the blood of an offering, which is also one of the sacrificial rites in the temple. Abaye says sprinkling the blood of an offering is the same as pouring a libation, since they are essentially one sacrificial rite. As it is written, I will not pour their libations of blood, from Psalms 16 verse 4, indicating that sprinkling the blood of an offering is also referred to as offering a libation. The Gemara asks with regard to the halacha that one is liable for worshiping an idol in these manners, even if they are not the way the idol was typically worshipped. From where are these matters derived? And the Gemara answers, as the sages taught in a Braita with regard to the verse, one who sacrifices to the god shall be utterly destroyed except to the Lord alone. Exodus 22 verse 19. If it were stated, one who sacrifices shall be utterly destroyed, I would have said the verse speaks of one who slaughters a sacrificial animal outside the temple courtyard, referring to a severe transgression that is stated elsewhere in the Torah. Therefore, the verse states, to the gods, indicating that the verse speaks of one who slaughters an offering to an idol. The Braita asks, from here I know only the halacha of one who slaughters an offering to an idol. From where is it derived that one who burns incense or pours a libation is also liable to receive the death penalty? The Braita answers that the verse states, except to the Lord alone. The verse emptied out, that is designated all the sacrificial rites to the ineffable name of God, indicating the one who performs any of these rites in idol worship is liable. The Braita asks, since slaughter is singled out from all the forms of worship to be mentioned in this verse, in order to derive from it that with regard to all the sacrificial rites performed inside the temple, one who performs them in idol worship is liable to receive capital punishment. From where is it derived that this halacha includes bowing down to an idol, which is not a sacrificial rite? The Braita answers that the verse states, and has gone and served other gods and bowed to them, Deuteronomy 17 verse 3. And a verse near it states, quote, then you shall bring forth that man or that woman who has done this evil thing to your gates, the man or the woman, and you shall stone them with stones, and they shall die. Deuteronomy 17 verse 5. It is derived from the juxtaposition of these two verses that one who bows down to an idol is liable to be executed. The Braita asks, we have heard the punishment of bowing down to an idol, but where is the prohibition against doing so derived? The Braita answers that the verse states, for you shall bow to no other god, Exodus 34:14. One might have thought that it should include among those liable to receive capital punishment one who hugs an idol, or one who kisses it, or one who puts his shoes on it as well. Therefore, the verse states, one who sacrifices shall be utterly destroyed, referring to the act of sacrifice in an offering in the idol worship. The Braita explains the slaughter of an animal was included in the general category of the prohibited forms of idol worship. And why was it singled out to be mentioned in this verse? It was singled out to compare a matter to it and to say to you, just as slaughter is notable and that it is a sacrificial rite performed inside the temple, and those who perform this rite for the purpose of idol worship are liable to receive the death penalty for it. So too, any form of worship that is a sacrificial rite performed inside the temple is prohibited when performed for idol worship, and transgressors are liable to receive the death penalty for it. Therefore, the act of bowing to an idol was singled out to be mentioned in a separate verse to derive the death penalty for that action itself, despite the fact that it is not a sacrificial rite performed in the temple, whereas the slaughter of an offering is singled out to be mentioned in order to derive from it the principle with regard to the entire category, namely that generally one is not liable to receive capital punishment for a form of worship that is not performed in the temple. The Gemara proceeds to clarify the Baraita. The master said in the Baraita, I would have said that the verse speaks of one who slaughters a sacrificial animal outside the temple courtyard. The Gemara asks, the punishment for one who slaughters a sacrificial animal outside the temple courtyard is karet, not capital punishment, as it is stated, each and every man, etc., who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to sacrifice to the Lord, even that man shall be cut off from his people. Leviticus 17, verses 8 and 9. Therefore, how can the Baraita suggest that a verse that mentions capital punishment could be referring to this transgression? The Gemara answers, it might enter your mind to say that in a case when witnesses warned the transgressor not to slaughter the offering outside of the temple, he is liable to receive the death penalty. But in a case when they did not warn him, he is liable to receive karet. Therefore, the Baraita teaches us that one who slaughters an offering outside of the temple is not liable to receive the death penalty, even if he was warned. The Baraita states that the principle concerning the forms of idol worship that are punishable by execution is derived from the verse that mentions slaughtering an animal as an idolatrous offering, whereas bowing to an idol is mentioned in the verse as an exception. Rabba bar Rav Hanan said to Abaye, say that bowing is singled out to be mentioned to teach, with regard to the entire category, that any honorable form of worship, when performed for the sake of idol worship, carries the death penalty. Not only sacrificial rites performed, I think it should say in the temple. And if you would say that, if so, why do I need slaughter to be mentioned in the verse specifically? One can say that mentioning slaughter is necessary for the matter of slaughter itself. That is to teach that one can have intention from one sacrificial rite to another sacrificial rite. In other words, slaughtering an animal with idolatrous intent is punishable by death, even if the intention of the transgressor pertains not to the slaughter itself, but to another part of the sacrificial process. As it was stated with regard to one who slaughters an animal in order to sprinkle its blood in idol worship or to burn its fat in idol worship, Rabbi Yochanan says. And then it continues. So that's the end of 60.